because you can handle the truth.
What Really Happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, where you'll find out what the Fukushima's going on.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. It is Friday, March 22nd, 2019. Thank goodness it's Friday. Thank goodness it's Friday. Thank goodness it's Friday. We have a lot to talk about today. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Mike is in our control room, ready to answer the phone, put you on the air with your comments, questions, and observations. And, of course, this being Friday, the lovely Lady Claire will be joining us in hour number 3. So let's just get right into it because there's a lot to talk about today. A lot of repercussions starting to show up over Trump's announcement that he would recognize Israel's annexation of the Golan Heights. And partly it's to shore up support for Netanyahu ahead of the upcoming elections, because Netanyahu has been trailing Benny Gantz, and it's a close race. In fact, it's so close, Benny Gantz is also going to be speaking at AIPAC. And I'm sure Netanyahu's not going to be happy about sharing the stage there. And, of course, it's another way to basically make stink face at Bashar al-Assad. But it does fly in the face of international consensus. It does fly in the face of United Nations resolutions. And basically, the Golan Heights has been a part of Syria since the country acquired its independence all the way back in 1944. And despite numerous wars, claims, and counterclaims, the international community continues to regard that region as part of Syria. And basically, formally recognizing Israel's annexation of the Golan would mark a break in decades of U.S. foreign policy, as well as flying in the face of international consensus. And of course, it completely pulls the rug out from underneath the U.S. outrage over the alleged Russian annexation of Crimea. And again, that isn't what happened. Crimea held a referendum to secede from Ukraine. Then they held another referendum to join the Russian Republic. And they asked the Russian Republic, can we come on board? And Russia said, sure. And that's exactly what happened. There was no annexation. There was no Russian invasion. But that's the official story. But even so, with Trump now basically saying it's okay for Israel to grab off a chunk of Syria, he has no more moral standing to say that Russia shouldn't grab off a chunk of Ukraine. So he shot himself in the foot there. Article coming on out from Russia Today basically saying that a big part of what's going on, of course, are the oil profits. There are huge anticipated U.S. and Israeli oil profits that are expected to be realized from underneath the Golan Heights. And Israel's already been drilling and selling, and they don't want to give all of that back. So that's another motive here. But the world is really out there saying, no, this was not a good idea. You've got the Arab League, Russia, Iran, Turkey are out there saying this is a wrong thing to do. In fact, they're basically warning the United States this is not a good thing to be doing here. And Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan said Trump's statement has brought the region to the edge of a new crisis. And he's absolutely right, it has. And yet when Trump tweeted out his little plan about we're going to recognize Israel's annexation of the Golan, it'll bring regional stability. No, it has not. The Kremlin is saying this is a destabilizing move. It's even more destabilizing than moving the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem. And even France is out there saying that Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights is against international law. So Syria, needless to say, has condemned Trump's move and issued a statement, first of all saying that Trump's clearly showing a blind bias toward Israel. Tell us something that we don't know. And further saying that Syria is determined to recover the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights. So we may be looking at a Syrian Israeli war. So much for reasonable regional stability there, Don. And of course, maybe the U.S. is thinking, well, if Israel and Syria mix it up, then we have an excuse to go back in and finally get that evil Assad. And they're going to re-escalate that war. What will Russia do? They're going to basically come on in and support Syria as they have been all along. And yet Pompeo has the unmitigated gall to say that Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis are disrupting Middle East stability. Talk about chutzpah. All right, turning to Syria, Russian attack helicopters are purging the last of the militants in northern Hama. They're continuing their strikes on the terrorist infrastructure in the Idlib de-escalation zone. And separately, two Mi-24P attack helicopters of the Russian Aerospace Forces struck several militant positions near the town of Al-Latamina in northern Hama. So what you have here is the Russians are doing the work to get the last of those militants. And Trump is trying to take the credit. You saw him out there the other day with his little maps. Look, this is before and this is after. Look at all the good that we've done. What Trump is trying to do is get out of Syria without making it look like we lost. He's going to declare victory and go home. Well, if you remember that the original goal of going into Syria was to replace Bashar al-Assad with a U.S. obedient puppet ruler, clearly the United States lost that one. There's really no other way to say it. They got whipped for fair in Syria, and they're losing in Afghanistan too. All right, we're going to do a shout out to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining our network. This next story, was actually reported by CBS. And during his high-profile visit to Israel, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said President Trump could be a present-day Queen Esther, a figure in Hebrew and Christian biblical stories who was sent to save the Jewish people. And so Pompeo saying it's possible Trump was sent by God to save the Jewish people from Iran. Ignoring, of course, the fact that Iran has not actually launched a war of conquest against another country in about 200 years. Meanwhile, tensions with Germany are continuing to escalate. Germany is openly defying U.S. demands to spend more on its NATO budget. Germany is already chafing at the economic harm being caused by the U.S. tariffs on aluminum and steel. And apparently the American ambassador to the country was out there basically being undiplomatic, leading to German calls that he be expelled. Now, of all the countries in the EU, it is Germany that has been on the receiving end of Trump's wrath since he entered the White House. And in 2 years, the bilateral relationship between Washington and Berlin has plummeted under the weight of Trump's constant verbal attacks. Trump has accused Germany of unfair trading practices over its lucrative auto exports, and he's virtually accused Berlin of treason in its dealings with Russia for natural gas, meaning the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. Well, yes, Germany does have a lucrative automotive trade. They make good cars, and that is how you accomplish international trade. You make good products other countries want to buy, and that's where the United States has fallen down. We've allowed our manufacturing to decline, both in quality and in quantity. This debacle with Boeing is the latest example that our products are no longer the best in the world. Okay, over in Venezuela, Bolton is out there saying that Trump is very serious about all options on the table. Now, remember, Elliot Abrams not too long ago got pranked by these two Russian radio hosts, and on their phone call said there was not a plan to directly militarily invade Venezuela. Obviously, that can be changed at a moment's notice here. But apparently something that's come on out is the reason that Maduro has arrested Juan Guaido's top aide is that apparently he was running a terrorist cell, or at least that's the accusation. So Bolton, in an interview with Breitbart, is saying Trump is very clear on this point. All options are on the table. So they're talking yet another invasion of yet another country that has not attacked us, that has not harmed us, that doesn't even threaten us, other than being an inconvenience to economic interests. Over in Israel, the Gaza March of Return, the architect of all of that, Abu Artema, is celebrating its 1-year anniversary. Now, we're not quite there. It's still about a week off. But the March of Return began on March 30th, 2018. It's been a weekly occurrence every week, steady as you can, for close to a year. One more week will make it a year. They did call it off, I think it was about a week ago, because of the Israeli airstrikes that were going on. But he comes on out here with a statement. Why would we die here in silence? We want our message to reach the world. We want to say to the world, here there is a people searching for a life of dignity, human rights, and freedom. Okay. And we have the weekly report on Israeli human rights violations in the occupied Palestinian territory. Apparently, Israeli warplanes launched dozens of airstrikes on the Gaza Strip, running for about 5 hours. And this basically amounts to collective punishment on the 2 million Palestinians jammed into the Gaza Strip. Now, 4 Palestinian civilians, including 2 women and a child, were wounded, in addition to damaging a wedding hall, an office belonging to the Ministry of Detainees and Ex-Detainees Affairs. Several houses sustained material damage. 3 Palestinian civilians were killed and 12 others were wounded in different incidents over in the West Bank. And again, it continues to be excessive force against a relatively helpless, imprisoned population. Okay. There's been a day of mourning declared in the West Bank following the shooting of 4 Palestinians by Israeli forces in the space of 24 hours. And it's just, it's atrocious what's going on over there. It really is here. Apparently, Israel has been shelling Rafah town in the southern Gaza Strip. At least 7 Palestinians were injured, and they're saying that the Israeli artillery targeted a military lookout post east of the town, destroying the post and wounding the 7 Palestinians. The Israeli army is saying that the shelling was a response to the releasing of balloons, arson balloons, that exploded over southern Israel and, as usual, caused absolutely no damage and injured nobody. I think all of these balloons and kites are coming from agent provocateurs. I don't think Hamas is dumb enough to keep releasing a weapon with a proven record of uselessness, knowing it will prompt a retaliation. I just don't buy that. There's something that smells about that whole thing. All right, as you know, there's this United Nations report that is critical of Israel's use of excessive lethal force against unarmed Palestinian protesters. And Israel, as usual, is coming on out and saying, oh, the United Nations is biased against Israel. They're a bunch of anti-Semites. They're Jew haters. They're really not being fair at all. And they really they should be looking at Hamas and just ignore what Israel is doing. Well, Hamas isn't shooting Israelis with butterfly bullets. It's not gunning down unarmed Israeli protesters. That's really what it comes down to. Now, this UN Commission of Inquiry on the demonstrations said this week that Israel should investigate the shootings of more than 6,000 people. Israel has agreed to an investigation into 11 killings. That's how far apart they are. And proving that it is not just the United States government that has been completely subverted by Israel. Great Britain will oppose the anti-Israel resolutions at the UN Human Rights Council. In fact, it will say they're going to oppose all resolutions brought to the UN Human Rights Council that condemn Israel. This is coming from the British Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt, saying that the UN Human Rights Commission had a disproportionate and discriminatory focus on Israel. I mean, he's getting his talking points directly from the Israeli government. Denmark, Austria, and Australia are also going to oppose all anti-Israel resolutions at the United Nations Human Rights Commission. So upon what meat doth this our Israel feed, that it has grown so great? Apologies to Bill Shakespeare. Jordanian King Abdullah II has reaffirmed the country's position regarding the occupied city of Jerusalem, saying that Jerusalem is a red line for Jordan. And the reason that he is taking a stand right now is because of Israel's escalations on the Temple Mount, and in particular, the continued incursions and desecration of the Al-Aqsa Mosque by Jewish extremists. So the pressure is building, and Israel's not going to stop until they get a regional war. That's what they want. Of course, Israel won't fight it, and they won't pay for it. You will. Here's a weird story. This is coming out of the Jewish Times, Times of Israel. Israel is going to hold a referendum on replacing Britain in the European Union. Now, Benjamin Netanyahu has promised this referendum to join the European Union because apparently Brussels is saying there's a space up for grabs after Britain leaves. And apparently this is something that Netanyahu thinks will get him more votes in the upcoming elections. Now, the last time I looked at a map, Israel was nowhere near Europe. I think it's just a campaign ploy. Meanwhile, Mike Pompeo is warning that the United States could curb their security ties with Israel over Israel's growing relationship with China. And Israel and China are cooperating with each other economically. The United States doesn't like that. I think it would be a good thing for the U.S. to curb security ties with Israel. Remember that story that came out a few years ago where all of the take from the NSA's spying on all of us is shared with Israel without any filtering whatsoever. So Israel basically gets to spy on everybody in this country. I would like to see that come to an end. So, yeah, Israel, keep on cooperating with China. That would be a good thing. Over in France, and this is getting serious, as we reported earlier in the week, the French army is going to be deployed to the streets of France for this weekend's Yellow Vest protests. Macron is using the emergence of a violent element, which is probably agent provocateurs, to threaten to shut down the Yellow Vest rioters. And now French soldiers are authorized to open fire if they feel lives are threatened by the Yellow Vest rioters. So they're basically saying if the police feel their life or that of the people they defend is threatened, they're authorized to use lethal force. It could be a very, very bloody weekend. Now, maybe some in the French government are thinking, well, that'll shut them up and get them to stand out. I think that would only enrage the French people more. And Macron is sitting on thin ice. Now, here's something that's a little bit interesting. There's this advocacy group, MoveOn.org. They've been around for a while. They're urging Democratic presidential candidates to boycott the upcoming AIPAC convention conference. And surprisingly, a lot of Democrats are. We got to take a break for commercials now. We'll be back after these few words.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not support censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked? It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. Join Mike on the air. Call toll-free 800-313-9443. 800-313-9443.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. So, MoveOn.org is urging Democratic presidential candidates to boycott the AIPAC conference. And surprisingly, quite a few are. And let's see, Senators Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris, and Bernie Sanders are not going to attend the conference. Apparently, Beto O'Rourke is not going to attend the conference. Pete, I'm not sure how to pronounce this, Buttigieg, the mayor of South Bend, Indiana, will not be going. And former Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, Julian Castro, also will not show up. Former Starbucks CEO Howard Schultz, who's considered, well, Fox's Pete Hegseth is saying that all these Democrats skipping the AIPAC conference, well, they at some level, they're obviously anti-Israel or maybe even anti-Semitic. And I got to tell you, Fox News is moving to the left so fast, they broke the sound barrier. Now, one thing that you will not see very often in the corporate media is the real core issue of what's going on in Gaza and the West Bank, and that's the right of return. And I'm looking at this article that came out of Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting, and it basically said they used the media aggregator Factiva to search the databases of 3 major U.S. newspapers, the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and the Washington Post. They found 45,000 articles that mentioned the Palestinian issue over the last 10 years. Of these, only 624 contained the phrase, the right of return. In other words, they don't want the American people to understand the Palestinians actually have a legitimate issue. The image they're trying to sell is the Palestinians, they're just agitating just for the sake of agitating, and they should just, sit down and shut up and accept life as it is now. But life as it is now is not very good, and it's getting worse. Now, today, March 22nd, is World Water Day, and basically, this year's World Water Day theme, Leave No One Behind, has kind of an ironic feel when applied to Israel, because as we've been reporting in recent weeks, Israel has been going around the West Bank demolishing Palestinian wells, wrecking water supply systems, irrigation systems, and it's obviously part of an ongoing process. Now, back in 1994, Palestinian agriculture accounted for 13% of the Palestinian gross domestic product. Today, it's only 3%. It's just another way that Israel puts pressure on the Palestinians. Now, here's a little bit of positive news. Trump finally did something I think is smart. And that is basically he has ordered the withdrawal of the new round of North Korea-related sanctions that had been announced earlier by the U.S. Treasury. And Trump tweeted this out earlier today and apparently just backed off on the trade. The Treasury had announced earlier that additional large-scale sanctions would be added to those already existing on North Korea. I have ordered the withdrawal of the additional sanctions. Now that is a positive step, and the ball is in your court, Kim Jong-un. It's a start. It's a step in the right direction. Now this story is a little bit chilling. It's coming out of Zero Hedge. The 31st U.S. Marine Expeditionary Unit practice seizing a tiny island and airfield with Special Operations Airmen and soldiers as part of a new island hopping strategy. And they basically grabbed Lashima Island, which is located off the northwest coast of Okinawa, and it's training for war with China. Now, for those of you who are historians and have studied World War II, you will understand that that island hopping campaign cost dearly in lives. I don't think there's going to be an island hopping campaign in this next war. It's going to be fought with missiles, and hopefully we can avoid using the nuclear ones. Another little article, this one is coming out of Mint Press News, describing that the new face of America's war machine is special operations. That the days of mass troops and tanks rolling across the countryside may in fact be a thing of the past. That instead the U.S. military doctrine is special operations hitting specific targets and trying to take control of a country that way. So hopefully we're going to see some of these special operations forces get pulled out of Syria. Got to take another break for commercials, and we'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure, resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue, and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed, and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, the number 2, keep it today.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcasts. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com and order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more, plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries.
This country is coming to. I sure would like to know if they don't do something by and by. The rich will live and the poor will die. Doggone, the panic is on. Can't get no way, can't draw no pay. Unemployment.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go to the phones now to Peter in Los Angeles. Aloha, Peter. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Mike, I called to chime in on Israel, which, by the way, there's that convention for the Israeli, targeting the Israeli lobby, anti-Israeli lobby, is on today that Grant Smith puts on. But I wanted to respond to what you were saying about the island hopping stuff and special ops and all that, and how, I'm an infantry guy, was, Ranger School, all that kind of stuff. And I can tell you right now that there's not going to be another island hopping campaign. If you massed ships at all, then, remember the old Davy Crockett, you could fire a nuclear weapon. They had that in the 60s from a Jeep.
Yes.
And it's just not going to ever happen. It's what would happen when you exercise for that is you need aircraft carriers, of course, and, a lot of big deck ships that the admirals and the Marine Corps really love, but have no utility whatsoever against any sort of credible opponent. The other thing is, I would tell you that even special ops, and I spent some time in that, is very limited with the artificial intelligence and programmable drones. Why even have targeted stuff? You don't need even behind the lines sneaking and peeking stuff that everybody used to do. We can't even, that can be done now by machines. And you can't even attribute those to anybody. But, I'd like to switch to Israel unless you want to like to talk about that or whatever. But
well, the comment you made about the fact that, I agree with you, there's not going to be any more island hopping again because the way the technological face of warfare has changed. But it does illustrate once again that the Pentagon is preparing to fight the last war rather than the next one.
Yeah, it was even 2 wars ago, Mike.
Yeah, well, yes, John.
3.
I've lost count. There have been so many.
Yeah, but it's the last one with a huge budget is what they're preparing to fight.
Yes.
But at any rate, I'm watching this Israeli lobby conference. I'm recording it as I'm listening to you as well. It's really interesting. I highly recommend people to record it and listen to it, or check out the Grant Smith sign. Excuse me, his site. By the way, he'd be a wonderful guest for you, Mike.
Okay.
But they're talking about the enormous amount of money, which as much as well as anybody in the world of how much money it is, about all the laws that have been changed, about all the wars that have been fought for Israel, about all the freedoms that we lost, freedom of speech and all sorts of things, and how completely owned. And I know you were talking yesterday about how incoherent our foreign policy is. Yes, it's because we're not following our interests; we're following theirs. And at least in the Middle East, and that drives every other policy we have because we've got skin in the game there. But when you put all that together, and they're spying, like you just mentioned, they're spying and have been since Obama granted them that access to all our intercepts. And they're now a member of the Five Eyes, or now Six Eyes. They're one of them. And Netanyahu came out and bragged that of all the intelligence agencies involved in the Six Eyes, they're the second largest. They're larger than they're larger than England, and they're larger than Australia and everybody else. They've got more eavesdropping than anybody except us. But you realize that they're ruining government contracts who are contrary to who support the BDS, and you realize that there's no other way to say it, Mike. This is a fifth column controlled by a foreign government using a population that is hostile. Frankly, that's hostile to the United States and what we stand for.
Yes.
Within the United States, enabled by people and other people in that group who do nothing about it. Thankfully, there are people in that group that do something about it, but not enough because look where we are. And it's a fifth column, and it needs to be treated that way. It needs to be treated. The people who are doing this, these treasonous sons of bitches who are doing this to us, and the people who are enabling that, they need to be dealt with harshly. And I mean very harshly. I mean maybe expelled. Because how else are we ever going to get our country back? And the people who the Jews who are good Americans and all that, and there are a lot of them. It's just that they're completely dominated by the ones who are involved in this. All the money has gone into this. They own Adelson, all these guys. They own all the parties. They own everything. They've got to stand up and be counted, or they're going to be counted against. And that's my basic comment. Mike, what do you think?
That's starting to happen because polls of American Jews show that their support for Israel is definitely in decline. And one of the primary reasons is because they are concerned that as the world's opinion of Israel also declines, that they, even though they're not part of the Israeli government or even live in Israel, are going to be seen as part of the problem. And it's one of the artifacts, of course, of Israel's constant proclamations that it represents all of the world's Jews. And so people looking at Israel's crimes are saying, well, if it's all the world's Jews, and we're back into some really negative territory there. there are some very evil individuals out there, and you're right. More of the Jews who don't agree with what's going on should speak out. But you also need to keep in mind it's part of their religion that you can't say bad things about other Jews. And for observant Jews, for Jews who are, following their religion, that does constrain them from speaking out.
And you're right, Mike. But my rejoinder to that is that remember when they were saying, guys like Bill Kristol and all these people were saying that Islamophobia is a fact of life. You look at every movie. Well, let me ask you, when was the last time anybody in any movie has ever seen a Jewish or an Israeli bad guy? But ask yourself how many Muslims and how many Arabs, of course Germans, of course, bad guys you've seen, and you can't even count them.
Yeah.
But the point is, they came out a couple of years back. Remember, they called Islam a gutter religion. Remember that? That was allowed. That was allowed to be said. And so, I would tell you that a religion that can't self-correct, that considers itself chosen even amongst themselves, and can't criticize people wrong, and then absolutely smears and stifles and tries to ruin anybody from the outside or inside, for that matter, who says
it absolutely is. And part of the problem, of course, is this. First of all, this unshakable sense of entitlement. And second, the idea that they are above societal norms. And I'll give you a good example, of course. For the Jewish holiday of Purim, it's quite common for Jews to dress up in blackface, which we're all told that blackface is now offensive to all the African Americans. But apparently, when the Jews do it on Purim, it's no longer racist. It's another one of these double standards. So the problem is that at some point, they're going to provoke a backlash, and it could be a global backlash, and it's going to be ugly. But it seems like if you study the last 2,000 years of persecutions and expulsions and pogroms, you find the same repeating pattern of a Jewish population that refuses to integrate with the culture around them, that views the culture around them as basically prey, primarily economically, and works to basically grab control of the society, its press, its government, until finally there is a backlash. And it's happened over and over and over throughout history for the last 2,000 years. And there's nowhere is it carved in granite that it's not going to happen again.
But Mike, can I say one more thing? I know you got calls backed up, but this is not me. But in light of what you were just saying, if I had gone to 90 bars over hundreds of years and gotten thrown out of 90 bars, right?
Yep.
For doing the same things, people are saying those bars are anti-Semitic. No, they're anti-Pete.
Yes.
What is that, anti-Petism? I mean, come on, what is that? They won't. Well, they'll never sit down and look in the mirror. Again, going back to your thing about never criticizing each other, they never sit down, look in the mirror, and call a spade a spade. And hey, they're a fifth column. They've been thrown out of tons of countries because they are a fifth column, and ones that are less tolerant than us would have thrown them out long ago.
Well, so, again, you need to go back and look at their religion, and I learned about it during my first marriage, where in their view, the Ten Commandments only applies to other Jews. The prohibitions against killing or stealing or lying, that's just within the tribe, and everybody else is fair game. And they actually believe this, and they feel no guilt for their behavior. And that's why they're not going to look in the mirror. In their worldview, under their religious beliefs, they're doing what they're supposed to do. Their religion actually teaches that God has exposed the Gentiles' money to the Jewish nation.
Sick, Mike. Listen, thank you. Have a great weekend.
All right, thanks a lot. Same to you. And contrary to what Peter said, we don't have calls backed up. I guess everybody's on spring break. Okay, 2 days ago was the 16th anniversary of the U.S. invasion of Iraq. And former George W. Bush press secretary Ari Fleischer decided to basically come on out and push this Twitter thread claiming that Bush did not lie to the world about Iraq. And they're back to saying, you know, everybody likes to say Bush lied, Bush lied. No, Bush didn't lie. Really, it was an honest mistake. You know, we had the CIA, along with the intelligence services of Egypt, France, and Israel, all concluded Saddam had nuclear weapons. We were all wrong, but that's not the same thing as lying. And if you believe that one, I have some of Saddam's nuclear weapons to sell you. I mean, come on, Ari. You're not being paid to be a professional liar anymore. Yes, Bush lied. I mean, there were reasons going into this thing. There were reasons to doubt the weapons of mass destruction story. There were all kinds of counter indicators. And all these intelligence agencies that were coming up with these reports, or who supposedly came up with these reports, they never had anything to back it up. I still keep thinking back to that movie, The Green Zone. Very courageous movie. And there's that one point where the protagonist is basically screaming at these CIA agents saying, what did you guys do? You know, what's going to happen to the United States if other countries know they can't trust us anymore when we make a claim? And we're continuing to see exactly what that meant in the ensuing years. Okay, we've been talking about the U.S. military's poor quality weapons coming out from the defense contractors, and it's a real problem. They're very expensive. They don't really work. We've been talking about the Independence class littoral combat ships, drivetrain problems, Freedom class littoral combat ships, also drivetrain problems with the modular weapons systems, to the point where those two classes are going to get scrapped and the Navy is going back to the drawing board. So those projects, after all the money poured into them, they're never going to be used. They're never going to see combat. You've got all the ongoing problems with the Gerald R. Ford. You've got the problems with the Zumwalt. And so it shouldn't be surprised that over at rollcall.com, there was this article that the Navy routinely buys defective ships. And that's the message. Buying warships that are defective, unfinished, or both has become the norm for the U.S. Navy, because it's really not about getting an effective warship. It's about pouring more money into the defense contractors. And of course, it leaves the overworked sailors having to deal with faulty ships in need of repair from day one. In fact, there's a joke that floats around here for the crews of the boomers. We don't have any boomers stationed here, but they do pull in here every once in a while. And the joke goes that SSBN stands for Saturdays, Sundays, and a bunch of nights, because of all the overtime they have to put in trying to keep these things running. Now, contrary to the Navy's own policy, and despite spending nearly $16 billion on average in each of the last 30 years on new warships, most U.S. combat vessels are delivered from private shipbuilders with flaws significant enough to impair the vessel's ability to perform missions or to keep crews safe, according to recent audits conducted for Congress. And it's not just the Navy. Apparently, the F-35 is once again in trouble, despite the announcement that the Navy's version of the F-35 is combat worthy. The actual index of its combat readiness appears to be going down as more and more problems are being identified. Anyway. Okay, former Deputy National Security Advisor K.T. McFarland and other aides in the White House appear to have worked on a plan to transfer sensitive U.S. technology, nuclear technology, to Saudi Arabia. And that's kind of a scary situation. And I'm sure Well, it turns out Israel and Saudi Arabia have actually been getting along secretly for quite some time. You were, of course, told that Israel was afraid of Saudi Arabia, which is why we had to give Israel all this money and all these weapons. And it turned out it was just this big joke, and they're all laughing. Oh. Okay, we got to take another break for commercials. We're going to come on back with the domestic political news after these few words.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation, and Angioprim is the result. A safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slow circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now for a special radio offer from Angioprim. That's angioprim.com/radio. ANGIOPRIM. Angioprim.com/radio or call 877-882-7221. That's 877-882-7221.
Did you know that neither the American Medical Association nor the American Bar Association were established to benefit the American people? Have you recognized that in our country, healthcare has little to do with health, and that our court system has nothing to do with justice? The priests of both medicine and law have been incentivized to implement a dark agenda on behalf of the Bilderbergers and their ilk. To protect ourselves and our progeny, we need to take a much closer look at how these two giant industries really work. Join me, Al Whitney, on In Defense of Humanity, Saturdays at 7 p.m. Central, as we expose the matrix and learn how not to consent to our own destruction.
Many people write us about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read you some from Amazon.com. It really does work like the review says it does. I cannot believe that after the first few days, I didn't feel as sluggish or clogged up. It has had a profound impact on my physical, emotional well-being. I'm skeptical as most people about products and their claims, and I never write reviews, but this is a wonderful product and I recommend it to everyone. Great product. It has brought my blood pressure from the mid-150s over the 80s to the mid-130s over mid-80s, along with diet and exercise in just the past couple of months. Excellent. Thank you, David. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit HeartDrop.
Summer working 2 jobs and living in car $5.15 an hour ago. Take part-time job at one of your stores. I bet you can't make it here anymore.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And apparently, Ari Fleischer's attempt to burnish W's image has already provoked a backlash from the various intelligence agencies who are in effect saying, no, you're not going to dump the blame for this on us. And they're basically providing examples of deception by former Vice President Dick Cheney, former Secretary of State Colin Powell, and other Bush administration officials in that push for war. Yes, Bush lied us into the war. Okay. All righty. Now, top Democrats are starting to admit that the Mueller report is likely a dud. And it's going to be glorious. Republicans are going to be, dancing and saying, see, we told you so. And we could have told you it was a big nothing burger years ago and saved all that time and money. $12 million. That could have been better spent here. But there are multiple sources saying that, yeah, the release is going to be disappointing. There are going to be no more indictments. And they keep saying the report will be out any day. It's going to go to the Attorney General, who will make the final decision how much of it will be released to the public. And I'm going to say probably not very much of it. And the reason for that is very simple. The Democrats aren't going to let go because the House Judiciary Committee has launched Operation Russiagate 2, and they have requested documents from 81 government agencies, entities like WikiLeaks, individuals, Eric and Donald Trump Jr., Jared Kushner, his son-in-law, Alan Weisselberg, the Trump Organization's chief financial officer, former Attorney General Jeff Sessions, former White House counsel Douglas McGahn. Now, the committee purports to be looking for obstruction of justice, collusion with Russia, and other transgressions. This, of course, coming after Mueller spent 2 years and $12 million investigating the exact same things. So they're not going to let the dust settle. The Democrat-controlled House wants to keep the post-Mueller Russiagate mill running for its political advantage. They're going to be trying to ride this into the 2020 elections. They're not going to let up. This is not an investigation. It's persecution. It's viciousness. All right, we have a caller waiting on the line. Michael in Canada. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha, Mike. I listen to your show every day. Usually get it on YouTube, but because I'm not home in time to catch it when it's live. Anyway, I called the other day and I was unprepared because it was the end of the show and I tried to get in under the wire. So I'd like to clarify a little bit, your listeners and yourself maybe, about this.
Okay, well, I'm going to have to put you on hold.
Okay.
Do not hang up. We got to take a quick break for station identification, and I'm going to come right back to you. We'll be right back.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
You're listening to Republic Broadcasting Network, because you can handle the truth.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. The history the government hopes you never learn. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show, hour number 2. And we're talking with Michael up in Canada. And Michael, you basically just pick up where you left off.
Okay. Okay, Mike. I want to say first that I haven't got a racist or hateful bone in my body. I'm not that kind of person. But we're talking about this anti-hate legislation they put through your Congress. And it starts off like saying you cannot say racist or hateful things against these people, but you could word that another way. You could say it is okay to say racist, hateful, name-calling things about anybody except these people.
Yes.
And it goes down the list. I couldn't remember it the other day. It goes African Americans, Latinos, Native Americans, Asian Americans, Pacific Islanders, and other people of color, and Jews, Muslims, Hindus, Sikhs, and the LGBTQ community. Did they leave anybody out?
No, I think you've covered pretty much all of it there. Well, we're starting to see a pushback against these ridiculous laws because they are an affront to the First Amendment right to freedom of speech. And ACLU is already going to work on this. This could wind up going all the way to the United States Supreme Court. And I am hoping, that whoever has been blackmailing our Supreme Court justices won't be able to get them to say, well, freedom of speech now has to be limited, because then it's no longer free speech, it's permitted speech. And one of the stories that we had on What Really Happened this morning is apparently our students on colleges have been so brainwashed that a poll said most of them agreed with the idea that freedom of speech should be limited for people who are saying anything that offends anybody. Well, of course, you can't have freedom of speech without offending somebody. There's always going to be somebody who's going to leap up and say, oh, what you're saying is offensive to me. So they've already succeeded in brainwashing the next generation into thinking there should be limits on freedom of speech. And that, I think, is a complete betrayal by our educational system.
My point about this was they didn't include, in all the religions and all the races, they didn't include white people or Christianity. So just by me saying this, there's going to be people like, well, he must be a white nationalist Nazi or something, or a racist of some kind, just because I'm saying this.
Well, I think that kind of, you know what, we had another caller the other day that was talking about white nationalism, and I think that maybe it's time to rebrand. And my suggestion at that time was, we have Black Americans and Brown Americans and Asian Americans, and probably you ought to start calling yourself American Americans, because it's going to be a lot harder for anybody in the media to try and give that a negative connotation, especially with the older generation. When you say nationalist, they're going to go back to, oh, Nazis, Nazi Germany. So I think you need to rebrand.
And we touch on Israel here for a second?
Yeah, real quick.
Talking about Trump saying that it's time to recognize Israel's dominance of the Golan Heights. Well, what about the rest of the countries in the UN?
Well, the United Nations has repeatedly said that the Golan belongs to Syria. But this is Donald Trump and Israel standing up and saying, we am's above the law.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the rest of the world isn't going to go along. Well, as soon as they call up Justin Trudeau, he'll go along with it too, and he'll make a similar statement. You mark my words.
He may well, but his poll numbers are in serious trouble, and he may decide he needs to sort of back down a little bit if he has any hope for re-election.
Well, it doesn't matter. He'll toe the Zionist line right into the ground, and they all do.
Yep. Now we're certainly seeing that.
Conservatives were in this country.
We're certainly seeing that with all these governments that are already coming on out without even having read the report from the United Nations Human Rights Commission on what Israel has been doing in Palestine. They're already out there saying, well, we're going to vote no, by golly, whatever Israel does is okay. Shoot little Palestinian children with exploding bullets, we're fine with that. Run over Rachel Curry with a bulldozer, yeah, that's fine. We can live with that.
Wonder who rules over us.
Yeah, very much so. Well, I'm not afraid to speak out about them. I have some rules about it.
As am I.
We confine our criticism to individuals. We don't paint with a broad brush. Anyway, Michael, thank you very much for the phone call. We're going to let you go here, and there's a breaking story on Fox News. Apparently, the Robert Mueller report has been delivered, and the fact that it was delivered on a Friday signals to me that, yeah, there's nothing in there, and by Monday, they hope this is all going to go away, and people are just going to stop thinking about it, and everybody will now start focusing on the new updated House Democrat investigation. All right, we are going to do a shout out to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining our network. Now, James Comey claimed in an op-ed yesterday that he doesn't care one way or the other whether Special Counsel Robert Mueller finds evidence that Trump conspired with Russia to influence the 2016 election or obstructed the FBI's collusion probe. But that's at odds with the former FBI director's testimony about his actions shortly after being fired by Trump, because Comey leaked the memos in order to spark the Mueller probe. He helped start this whole thing. Now, you want to talk about collusion. New classified emails. I mean, Judicial Watch, they're doing a great job over there. Classified emails show that Hillary colluded and met with Putin-linked Russian oligarch, but the FBI covered it up. Then, of course, they turned around and they went after General Flynn. So Hillary, once again, gets away because she's got the goods on everybody. She knows where all the dead bodies are buried and how they got to be dead bodies. More Judicial Watch work. A new batch of Hillary Clinton emails obtained by Judicial Watch contains messages that the former Secretary of State tried to delete. Apparently somebody figured out, hey, you can go back into that trash basket and get them out. And the latest collection casts doubt on Clinton's 2015 statement under oath that she handed all her confidential work-related emails to the State Department. It doesn't cast doubt. She lied. And one of the emails basically shows that Clinton discussed top secret U.S. Middle East issues on her private email account. That's a Title 18 felony violation right there. Apparently, there's a total of 5 new classified emails and communications that included controversial figures Lanny Davis and Sidney Blumenthal. Okay. Remember the Jussie Smollett case? Actor on this TV show staged a fake hate crime, apparently to try and get more money on his show, which backfired horribly. And what's really interesting is that when the police were starting their investigation, Cook County State Attorney Kim Foxx recused herself. Got everybody's head scratching what was going on over there. Well, apparently it's come on out that she intervened in the case inappropriately by asking Chicago Police Department Superintendent Eddie Johnson to turn the Smollett investigation over to the FBI at the request of a Smollett relative and a former Obama administration official. So what it looks like to me is the police were going to do an honest investigation. So quick, let's give it to the FBI, who, of course, will just cover it all up. George Conway is continuing his little Twitter war with President Trump. Conway is, I think, a perfect example of just how childish political discourse has become in this nation. And he was out there saying earlier today, Trump thinks he needs to be reelected to avoid being indicted, and more public shots about Trump's mental fitness. And it's just been this bitter fight over Twitter. And Conway tweeted, think about the fact that we don't just have a mentally unstable president, but a president who thinks he needs to be reelected to avoid being indicted. Well, I mean, that's what Netanyahu is thinking. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, I mentioned this earlier in the show. College students say First Amendment shouldn't protect hateful, offensive, or rude speech. Who gets to decide what is hateful or offensive speech? There is the problem. Freedom of speech is an absolute. You either have freedom of speech or you have permitted speech. And I think this is sort of revealing part of the reason for this agenda to turn the younger generation into these thin-skinned, easily offended at everything snowflakes, to basically convince them, oh, we can't have freedom of speech. I'm afraid I'll hear something that I don't like. Well, too bad. You live in a country where freedom of speech is recognized as a right. And I don't agree with people who intentionally go out of their way to say hateful things. It's impolite. It's rude. But you can't start using that as an excuse to stifle other people's speech who are talking about serious, serious issues. Okay. All right. So let's get into the economic news here. John Adams of Adams Economics basically is looking at this issue, saying that the war on cash is really a war on the people. And it's a continuation of a process that has been going on since the country was started. When the United States was founded, the money was the metal in the coins, silver and gold. That was the money. And once you earned it, you put it in your pocket. It was totally under your control. There wasn't anything the bankers or the government could do about it. It was yours to do with as you saw fit. Save it, spend it, whatever. It didn't really matter. It was yours. That was freedom. Then you started getting into the creation of the Federal Reserve, where all of a sudden the money stopped being linked to that silver and gold, and the money became the Federal Reserve note and was delinked from the silver coinage. And then, of course, in 1964, the coinage itself became debased. No more silver, certainly no more gold, not even copper in the pennies. And the banks and the government could then manipulate the value of that money, even if it was already in your pocket and you already owned it. And this is the next step. They want you to not have your own money in your pocket. They want it in the banks someplace where they can keep an eye on it, use it if they need it, and basically just use that in turn to control you. The Federal Reserve is, first of all, it's not federal. It's no more federal than Federal Express. And it's not an institution interested in serving the people of the United States or the country itself. It is a private, for-profit organization which refuses to be audited, which pays no taxes other than the taxes on the land on which their branch banks sit. It's a sweet little operation. And they get to call the shots. They get to call the shots. They have usurped the monetary policy of the United States. The creation of the Federal Reserve, first of all, was unconstitutional because the Constitution vests the Congress with the power to coin money. Note the word coin money, and regulate its value thereof. And nowhere does the Constitution allow the government to delegate that authority to anybody else. And the 10th Amendment forbids the government from simply assuming that. But, you know, the bankers have got a lot of money, and politicians will sell their own mother for $1. And so we got sold back into the clutches of the exact same predatory banking system we fought the American Revolution to break free of. All right, another article out of Investment Watch blog talking about the Federal Reserve's obsession with the stock market as an indicator that they're scared of what is coming. And over the last 2 months, every single Fed hawk has given up on normalization. Every single one. Now, throughout last year, Fed Chair Powell maintained he was focused exclusively on normalizing Federal Reserve policy by reducing its balance sheet to pre-crisis levels of about $1 trillion. That's $3.5 trillion lower than the $4.5 trillion it was when Powell took the helm at the Federal Reserve. The second thing Powell wanted to do was raise interest rates to the neutral state, which is the rate of gross domestic product growth versus inflation. For some reason, they think keeping those pretty much at the same rate is going to help things. And Powell kept saying these were his two objectives no matter what. Then came that October-December U.S. stock market meltdown, and Powell buckled like a cheap paper plate. Over in Germany, they're dealing with their crisis. Manufacturing falls to a 79-month low. And Merkel is saying it is a combination of concerns over Brexit, as well as the disputes between the United States and China and the tariffs problem. Meanwhile, Russia bought 1 million ounces of gold in February, that basically comes out to 31 metric tons, 1 million ounces of gold. That's a lot of gold. I can't even imagine that much gold. Most analysts believe Russia is going to continue buying at this level and may increase in the coming months. Russia's getting ready for a currency war. So's China, for that matter. All right, the United States has granted Iraq a 90-day waiver on sanctions to allow them to import Iranian oil. And the Trump administration is being magnanimous here. You can go ahead and buy your oil. But reminding everybody that they reimposed sanctions on Iran's energy exports last November, citing its nuclear program and meddling in the Middle East, because after all, meddling in the Middle East is our job, darn it. And as a little reminder, especially as Ari Fleischer gets pummeled for saying that we didn't lie about Iraq, Iran never had a nuclear program other than the peaceful uses of nuclear energy that they're allowed to have under the Non-Proliferation Treaty, which both Iran and the United States signed and ratified. But as usual, the United States is not in the habit of standing by their treaties here. Okay. Little side note here. Way back, a little over 100 years ago, 1913, was the year when the government, first of all, created the Federal Reserve, which was unconstitutional, and gave us the 16th Amendment. And during the debate on the 16th Amendment, it was promised to the American people that the amount of a federal income tax would never exceed 2%. Boy, did you guys get suckered. You were taken for such a ride on that one. Oh, my goodness here. Apparently, 3 of Israel's largest banks, in fact, there are 3 largest banks, Hapoalim Bank, Leumi Bank, and Mizrahi Tefahot Bank, have all been ordered to pay record fines totaling over $1 billion to the U.S. government after the banks were found to have actively colluded with thousands of wealthy Americans in massive tax evasion schemes. No coverage in the American corporate media. We're going to take a break. We got a caller waiting on the line, and we'll be right back.
Many people tell us about their experience with Extendivite. Just listen to what Glenn has to say.
Prior to taking it, I had diabetic neuropathy. The Extendivite reduced that significantly. Acid reflux was reduced. I had athlete's foot, very severe. Trimmed that down to about 75%. Dandruff, almost completely gone. I had occipital neuralgia at the base of my skull. I was having migraines reduced by about 90%. Heart palpitations, my heart would kind of stall out. I would skip a beat, very uncomfortable. And when walking from downstairs going to sleep, by the time I got to the bedroom, which is just one flight of stairs, my heart was pounding, coming out of my chest. My vision was blurry. This completely solved that problem. Great product. Thanks.
Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge $20, $30, $40, $50, if possible, $100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
We will not go down in the night without a fight. You can burn up our mosques and our homes and our schools, but our spirit will never die. We will not go down in Gaza tonight. Women and children alive.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And again, I want to start this section of Beg with a big thank you because some of you have been donating to Republic Broadcasting. And as I've said many times before, if you hadn't done so, we would not be here. Earlier in the week during this very show, we all got a real-world demonstration of just how close to the edge RBN is operating with all of our equipment that is old and worn out. Some of the on-air hosts are old and worn out, but that's something you can't fix. Oh, I got a nasty remark from Claire on that one. I was referring to myself. Anyway, so that being said, we need you to continue to support. We don't have foundation money coming in. We don't have George Soros. He won't even send us a Hanukkah card. So if you'd like to help out, and there's no such thing as too small a donation, the postal address to send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity cash, is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can make a credit or debit card donation is 800-724-2719, extension 1 during business hours, extension 3 at all other times here. And before I take this next phone call, I'm watching the Fox News feed here, and they're really going on about the Mueller report being delivered to the Attorney General, and they're all talking, but there's nothing really to report. They're struggling to make this into a big story. And as I said earlier in the show, it's very obvious that Fox News has now moved as far left as CNN and MSNBC. There's no longer a conservative major TV news network, and there is a need for one to preserve a diversity of opinion. But they had somebody on there basically talking about all the things that Mueller should have investigated, and he didn't. He didn't investigate that Russian hack on the DNC emails, which we all know was actually an internal leak. Okay, we're going to go to the phones. Art off the grid, welcome to the show. I'm probably going to have to take you through the next commercial break. What is on your mind?
Yeah, just real quick on the banking. I want to remind everyone what Thomas Jefferson said. He said, quote, "I believe that bank institutions are far more dangerous to our liberties than standing armies. If the American people ever allow private banks to control the issuance of their currency, first by inflation, then by deflation, the banks and corporations that will grow up around these banks will deprive the people of all the property until the children wake up one day homeless on the continents their fathers conquered. The issuing power of currency should be taken from the banks and restored to the people to whom it properly belongs." Now, he said this, I believe, originally in a letter to the Secretary of Treasury in 1802, and later during the debates in 1809 when they were debating the recharter of the central bank.
Yes.
So let's go to Article 1, Section 8, Clause 5 of the Constitution. Congress shall have the power to coin money, regulate the value thereof, and a foreign coin, and fix the standard of weights and measures. Nowhere in there, you are correct, Mike, when you say nowhere in there does it give the Congress the authority to delegate that power to a private corporation for profit.
Yes.
And that's all I had to say on that.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Is there anything else?
Now, just want to remind people, if we don't stop this, they're only one step away, and that is that nice little chip that's on your debit cards now. Well, you Christians out there, you believe in the mark of the beast? There it is, right there. You're one step away from the implanted device. And the rest of you, just think about what Alex Jones talked about, the stack and pack cities and the removal of currency from the hands of the people. It's all coming to fruition. It's all coming to pass.
It really is.
Everything they told us is here. Thanks, Mike.
All right, thanks an awful lot, Art. We're going to let you go. Have a good weekend. Thank you for the phone call. All righty, getting on back to the economic news here. Apparently, another article from Investment Watch blog. The retirement crisis is much worse than you think. According to a recent survey, 1 in 5 American adults have nothing saved for retirement or emergencies. A further 20% have squirreled away only 5% or less of their annual income to meet certain financial goals. Less than a third of all Americans have saved at least 11% or more. Now, the reality is, especially when you consider that the Social Security Trust Fund is full of IOUs that cannot be redeemed or will not be redeemed by the U.S. government, the reality is for a lot of us, there will be no retirement. And that's just something we're going to have to accept. And we're seeing a lot of people who should be retired, struggling with jobs at the local supermarkets or the local big box stores. All right, we got to take another break for commercials, and we will be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Homeowners, are you in foreclosure, expecting to be served with a foreclosure lawsuit, or suspect your lender has coerced you into an illegal mortgage transaction? A huge number of mortgages made in the last 10 years have legal issues and are possibly defective. State laws and the U.S. Supreme Court have upheld that defective mortgage documents are grounds for foreclosure defense and for counterclaims in favor of the homeowner. If your mortgage has been sold or assigned since closing the loan, it may be defective and you may be paying the wrong party, and the lender may not have standing or the right to foreclose or collect payments under the law. If you would like to know if your mortgage is legal or not, or know if you are paying the right party, we can help. Our initial consultations are free of charge. We are not attorneys. We are legal researchers and work closely with experienced lawyers who know how to help you find the evidence to help you keep your home. Call toll-free 1-855-2-KEEP-IT. That's 1-855-2-KEEP-IT today.
Do you worry a lot? If you're forgetful, nervous, moody, or overwhelmed, chances are you're not protecting yourself from the ravaging effects of stress and anxiety. No matter the cause, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, your quality of life, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in as little as 1 to 2 weeks and increase your ability to recall facts, names, and numbers in 4 to 12 weeks. Calm and Clever was created by scientist Kurt Hendricks, a principal investigator in 2 NIH-funded studies on Alzheimer's disease. Try Calm and Clever for 2 months. You'll feel the difference. Call 1-800-758-8746 or go to calmandclever.com.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more, plus magful clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AirOutfitting.com.
What Really Happened with your host, Mike Rivero. Visit us online at whatreallyhappened.com. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. Turning towards immigration, the Border Patrol says the detention centers are all full, and they have been forced to just start releasing migrants into the general population. They're just going to stop holding on to them. Meanwhile, the California National Guard is leaving the border. It's just wide open. And the illegal immigrants are just crossing over, and the Democrats love it. The Democrats absolutely love it. Now, we talked about this briefly yesterday, but apparently near Yuma, Arizona, a group of 170 migrants dug under the Arizona border fence. Some sections of that fence are not in good shape. And ultimately, no matter what kind of a wall is built, somebody who is willing to do the work will get under it or over it. It'll cut the numbers down. Look at what happened when Hungary put up their border control fence. Went from 4,000 a day to 60. But the only way we're going to stop this problem is to enforce Title VIII, which means those who aid illegal immigrants, house them, feed them, transport them, or employ them are charged, tried, and sent to prison, or at least fined heavily. If you cut off the financial incentive for the illegals to come here, they're not going to come here. And they're a huge burden on our economy. They're sending huge amounts of U.S. money back to their families in their home countries. That's another economic drain. This is just bad news all around. And the Democrats are okay with it as long as the illegals will vote Democratic. All right. And another part of the issue, another part of the problem, rather, up in Minnesota, the Muslim refugees are bringing a wave of tuberculosis. I remember when I was a kid, tuberculosis was a big problem. And it was eradicated. They succeeded in eradicating tuberculosis in this country. And that's back. It's worth noting that the number of tuberculosis cases reported in the U.S. climbed for the first time in 23 years starting in 2015. And much of that rise is being pinned on the jump in foreign-born populations. All right. Down in Florida, they're looking at a bill that would allow illegal immigrants to get driver's licenses. Just put them out on the road. I wonder if Florida has a motor voter program. Get your driver's license, and by the way, we're going to register you to vote Democratic. Over in Italy, there was this African bus driver who kidnapped 51 white Italian students and threatened to murder them all unless Italy agrees to allow more African migrants in. So how's that open border thing working out for you? This has been a disaster all the way around. It's just an absolute disaster here. Okay, let me just get that taken care of. Brexit is still very much up in the air. Apparently, the EU has agreed to a 2-week delay to Brexit for Theresa May to try and come up with some kind of a new deal everybody can agree to. But voices within Parliament are saying they reject the idea of a third vote. They have gone down this path twice now. The deal is terrible for Great Britain. And Speaker Bercow is out there saying, no, there will not be a third vote. And of course, the British media are screaming at him, he's out to destroy Brexit. He's out to destroy Brexit. Tories are blasting Theresa's toxic blame game because she's trying to blame them for the derailing Brexit. And right now, Theresa May is facing intense pressure to name a date for her resignation. So she botched that up really good. All right, we're going to take a phone call now from Jeff in Michigan. Aloha, Jeff. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, how you doing? I was wondering, what is the historical response by a country that's being invaded?
Well, generally, they fortify their borders and they try and fend off the invasion. This one, of course, has been a slow-motion invasion, and they were hoping the American people wouldn't notice. But Americans are noticing all over. So are the Europeans. It is, in fact, an invasion. Because what is the end result of an invasion? Your country gets taken over, your culture gets erased, a new culture gets imposed on top of it.
Aren't we justified in just shooting the invaders?
That's supposed to be what the Army is supposed to do. And right now, I mean, earlier this week there was a story that came on out where the Pentagon had identified $12 billion, more than twice what Trump was asking for. And so far, I haven't heard a word from the White House, from Donald Trump, telling the Pentagon, get started.
Yeah, so I'll leave you with this. I think it's gone on far too long, and they've been enlightened upon this, and then so we need to take the final step to stem the flow, and that seems to be the only way to do it.
Well, unfortunately, there have been groups down along that border who have formed their own little militias, if you will, to try and discourage the illegals from crossing. And unfortunately, they they wind up getting arrested by the police, for vigilantism. So, I mean, it's kind of an awkward situation. The government won't do anything about that open border, but if the American people try and do something about that open border, they're going to get arrested.
And they get rid of the government.
Well, I think the government is in the process of self-destructing. So sit back, have some pretzels, and, watch the show.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for the phone call. Have yourself a good weekend. Now, thousands of European Union troops arrive in Great Britain for a major exercise. And they're arriving one day after Brexit was supposed to occur prior to the 2-week extension. And the troops include military personnel, first of all, from Britain, Belgium, Canada, Denmark, Estonia, France, Germany, Italy, Latvia, Lithuania, the Netherlands, Norway, Spain, and the United States. Now, 10,000 military troops, I don't know. I would be very, very nervous. Are they there just for this major exercise, or were they being sent on in to quell possible civil unrest, or even worse, basically grab control of the government and glue it on back to the EU? At this point, anything could happen. Over in Germany, Holger Schmidt, CEO of Schmitz & Partner AG, said the British should be happy to have turned their backs on the Brussels Club. While for German savers, Brexit is a disaster, because right now Germany is the EU's strongest economy. They're going to be the cash cow to the EU. And the German people aren't going to want to carry that load all by themselves. It's a huge, huge mess. Apparently, somebody set up a petition in Parliament. Parliament has the same sort of petition website that the White House does. And immediately it filled up to something like 2 million signatures saying, cancel Brexit. Or actually it was calling for a new referendum. And Nigel Farage is saying there's something funny about this, because apparently a lot of these signatures are coming from other countries, North Korea, Afghanistan, even Papua New Guinea. So Farage is calling for an inquiry. Now, somebody's just trying to run up the petition, and they're using spoofed IDs to do it. Now, the Eurosceptic Party, Forum for Democracy, is going to become one of the 2 largest groups in the Dutch Senate, stripping the ruling coalition of its majority after winning provincial elections on Wednesday. This followed the Utrecht shooting. So again, populist, Eurosceptic parties, nationalists, they're sweeping the polls. And the globalists are in a panic. How do we reverse this? How do we get them to love the New World Order? They pretty much botched this. But again, I don't see people like George Soros giving up on it. He's had this dream. I have a dream of a one world government, and I'm sitting on the golden throne of planet Earth. George Soros is a good argument for socialism, because it shows what having way too much money can lead to. Because Soros he's playing around with planet Earth and its people like they're toys. And we didn't elect him to have authority over us by virtue of his money. He's an unelected dilettante. He's a monetary tyrant. Now, a former staffer of the Southern Poverty Law Center, who's now working as a Rolling Stone reporter, just published a scathing essay. And this guy's name is Bob Moser. And he says the SPLC is a highly profitable scam that never lived up to the values it espoused. And he's accused them of basically ripping off their donors while turning a blind eye to sexual harassment and racial discrimination within its own ranks. And I think it was about a week ago that we had a story about how SPLC just had a huge amount of money. Okay, let's talk about Boeing. They're in trouble. the Indonesian airline Garuda has canceled its $5 billion order for 49 Boeing 737 MAX jets. And that's a big hit for Boeing, and they may not be the only ones to do so. Other airlines are looking very closely at what's going on here, because it looks like Boeing really messed up that 737 MAX. And complicating the issue is Boeing just rolled out its newest airliner, the 777X, which is this gigantic aircraft that they want to sell. But now a lot of people are going to be saying, I'm not sure. Apparently, the FBI is joining the criminal investigation into just how the Boeing 737 MAX got its certification. And earlier in the week, we were reporting that there was this very questionable arrangement where the FAA basically allowed Boeing to do its own testing and certification, which it makes as much sense as the USDA or the FDA allowing vaccine makers to test their own vaccines. So there's a federal grand jury investigation, and it's looking into this certification process that approved the safety of the new Boeing plane, 2 of which have crashed since last October. Now, the Ethiopian Airlines was one of the few companies that actually got their hands on a Boeing 737 MAX 8 simulator, but the captain who flew the crashed planes failed to do any training on it. He basically skipped his training. They set up this simulator in January, 2 months before the crash, but the captain of the doomed aircraft never used it. Apparently, these crash jets also lacked key safety features because Boeing sold them as add-ons and charged extras for them. One of the safety features would have been an angle of attack disagree, or a stall warning disagree, meaning there were multiple systems checking for a stall condition, and if they weren't all in agreement, it would flash this light and you would know there was a problem. And they're zeroing in on the stall warning, and this automated flight system was going to push the nose down when it got a stall warning. Apparently, another one of the stall systems has 2 sensors but only uses 1. There was another safety feature that would give a visual representation of the actual airflow over the nose of the aircraft, another way of verifying whether you were really going into a stall or not. Now, the pilots of the Lion Air Boeing 737 MAX apparently were searching a flight manual to try and find out why the plane kept lurching downwards against their commands. This is from the cockpit voice recording. And they messed this one up. They really did. Well, maybe Boeing can take all these 737s and repurpose them for military sales here. All righty, we're getting ready for spring break. Oh, actually, no, let's take a phone call. Keith Rogers, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, Michael, I was just going to say real fast. I was watching news here on TV, and I hate watching TV, but anyway, I was downstairs thinking around there. But anyway, there was a thing on the news here about this Boeing thing, and they said that after 9/11, the laws changed, which allows most manufacturers in-house to test their own stuff there because they didn't trust anyone outside the country or anyone else. And I thought that was sure strange.
Yeah, that did sound very, very strange. I mean, that's what all these government agencies are paid all these tax dollars to do. And maybe it's just another way that our government is starting to fall apart, because we've had all these stories about how these government agencies aren't doing the jobs we, the people, are being told that they do, whether it's the FDA testing drugs for safety, the SEC keeping an eye on financial shenanigans, USDA making sure, food is, truly organic.
Yeah, you got a break on it.
Yeah.
You got a break on it. I just want to say this, that it was funny, though, Mike, that they used the premise of this as after 9/11 for security issues. And I thought that was what was strange about it, that they would use that as a way to be able to circumvent inspecting, having it inspected by someone else rather than, just, well, we're going to inspect our own planes. That just sounds so stupid. Anyway, I'll let you go. Okay, thank you.
All right. Well, thanks an awful lot. The question I have on my mind is if this problem actually showed up during any of Boeing's test flights, and they just figured that with enough pilot training, they could learn to live with it, except the pilots weren't trained to deal with it. Got to take another break for commercials, and we'll be right back.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcasts. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
When your doctor tells you you have bad cholesterol or blockages in the arteries, what do? When diet and exercise is not enough, we try medications and hope for the best. For the last 2 decades, I have been telling people about a natural method to help solve these problems and more. Extendovite can help maintain cardiovascular health and lower blood lipid levels in adults. The 7 herbs in Extendovite are known to work together synergistically to get the results we hope for. There are many testimonials on Extendovite's effect on circulatory-related ailments. Get Extendovite today to start your journey back to a healthier life. To order, call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com or see us on amazon.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, the number 2, keep it today.
When all this twisted steel was swept away, did these remaining holes reveal what's really happened?
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. And basically, according to a senior Department of Justice official, Special Counsel Robert Mueller is not recommending any further indictments, meaning he found nothing, nada, zip. And it looks to me what they're going to do is basically get this whole thing out, that it was a nothing burger today, and by Monday, they hope everybody will have forgotten. No, we won't, because Monday, we're going to make a big issue about it. This was a persecution. It wasn't an investigation. And now the House Democrats are going to try and continue it. So there's going to be a lot of spin on this thing. Democratic leaders are calling for the report to be made public. It should be. Even Trump is saying, make it public. But it's going to be up to William Barr as to whether or not that's going to happen. Okay, we're into spring break. And apparently things have been so out of hand down at Miami Beach. Armored police riot squads are now patrolling the Miami Beach spring break crowds. And they're going to be wearing protective gear, helmets, equipped with shields. Police vans will be parked on the sand to rapidly detain misbehaving revelers. Boy, that's not the image of spring break that I knew back when there was a possibility I could actually attend myself, which never happened. I saw this video of this literally a mob of girls in bikinis just pounding on each other. And I'm wondering, where is all this coming from? This has to be a reflection of what's gone wrong with our culture. Spring break was supposed to be where college kids would get a chance to relax and de-stress from what was, from college, which can be a very stressful environment. And yes, they'd have a bunch to drink, but there'd be shows, there'd be dance contests, wet t-shirt contests, things like that, kind of harmless fun. And now they've got armored police guarding the students. Anyway. All right, let's talk about guns here a little bit in the few moments before the Lady Claire joins us. Up in Maryland, their red flag law has already resulted in a death. A 61-year-old man was shot and killed by an officer who was trying to enforce Maryland's new red flag law. And apparently, two officers were serving this extreme risk protective order and shot and killed the man listed on the order. This man had done nothing wrong. That's what you keep in your mind. They weren't arresting him for a crime. They were arresting him, but they didn't even arrest him. They just wanted to take his stuff. All right, we're going to take a break here for station identification. We're going to be back with the lovely Lady Claire after these few words.
The reviews for Extendivite are amazing. Here are some from Amazon. September 2018. Extendivite works in keeping my blood pressure in the normal range. I've been using Extendivite for many years now. May 2018. Great product. I use regularly and I rarely get sick. March 2018. This product has relieved what appeared to be angina pain in my chest and shortness of breath after climbing stairs. I'm quite happy about it. February 2018. My husband, son, and I have been using this product for a few months now, and we have noticed an improvement in our joints and blood pressure. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. To order, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
This is RBN, the Republic Broadcasting Network.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, because World War III is a really bad idea. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show, hour number 3. And interestingly enough, Rudy Giuliani is already out there on the news saying the fact that Robert Mueller did not recommend any indictments basically is an admission there was no Russian collusion. And of course, the Democrats are out there saying, well, just because Mueller couldn't find it doesn't mean it didn't happen. And we know how evil that Donald Trump was. Anyway, before we get into Lady Claire's talking points here, we're going to take a phone call from Mark in North Carolina. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind? Mark, are you there?
We lost Mark.
We lost Mark. Okay.
Okay.
You know, maybe we ought to microchip him or something. We keep losing him. So anyway, Lady Claire, what is your first story?
Well, the first story is that scientists from around the world are calling for an immediate halt to genetically altered kids.
Yes.
And they're warning of the consequences of not implementing a temporary global halt on gene editing of human eggs, embryos, and sperm.
I absolutely agree. This is an incredibly dangerous thing to be doing.
And there were 18 people and ethicists from 7 countries calling for this moratorium, which can result in genetically altered babies. And it was prompted by a 2018 announcement by a Chinese scientist saying that the birth of the world's first gene-edited twin babies had happened. You know, and the one thing I have to wonder about, Mike, do you remember Max Headroom, the series?
Yes, I loved that show. I was so sorry when it was taken off the air.
I did too. And one of the episodes had to do with designer babies.
Yes.
And they had been on the rise, and now babies were created with whatever aspects you wanted them to have.
Yes.
And they were grown outside the womb, and parents would just pick them up. And I remember thinking how bizarre that sounded to me then, and we're there.
We are definitely there.
Yeah.
And again, to illustrate why this is also dangerous, as we've mentioned before, DNA is incredibly self-referential. It's not like it's laid out. The example I always like to use, of course, is the Roundup Ready corn, which turns out the corn stalks are much tougher than the natural variety, requiring corn farmers to buy Kevlar belted tires for their tractors to avoid being punctured.
Yeah.
Well, it's now coming on out that these gene-edited babies may have an unexpected aspect besides their immunity to HIV, which is what they were being designed to do. They may have high IQs. And again, it shows how unpredictable all of this is. But even worse, if it turns out they do have high IQs, there's going to be a black market for people who want to have brilliant children.
Oh, yeah.
And they're out there, and I remember that from my days with Mensa. Because, you know, at the Mensa conventions, you'd see all these women who wanted brilliant children, and they were very, very friendly.
I see.
Yes.
Okay. Well, that concerns me also about this technology, but even worse, about the people who are not going to observe the moratorium. I'm betting right now, I think I have a cent I could bet,
Yes.
that DARPA's going to want to get their hands on this technology.
Absolutely no question.
Oh,
if they're
just
not
as-
already into it.
Yeah. And but what about, let's say we have bad guys in the world who want to create killing machines for their, for their cartels. I think that could happen just as well.
Yep.
Yeah, and that does concern me a great deal.
Remember that whole series of movies, Born Identity?
Oh, yeah.
And where they're basically using viruses to change the DNA of people. And what was that other one? Not Lucy. I'm thinking. But it's a topic we see in movies very often, of humans being re-engineered to be more ruthless, more vicious, to lack empathy. And what was the one with? I'll think of it somewhere in the middle of the rest of the show.
I know.
Yeah.
Scarlett Johansson played the part.
Well, that was in Lucy, but I'm thinking about the other one.
Okay.
Where there was the Russian agent.
Oh yes.
Hannah.
Yes.
Hannah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Great little movie there.
Wonderful. And let's go on to what the Pentagon has been doing.
Yes.
The Pentagon has deployed B-52 bombers to Europe in a message to Russia amid nuclear tensions. Now, this comes to us from antiwar.com. So the Pentagon has sent 6 nuclear-capable B-52s to Europe for training exercises with European NATO members in a move that officials are presenting as a message to Russia. You know, it is... Oh,
you know,
I think
it's
we
Russian aggression.
Yeah.
I was looking at that one comment here.
Yeah.
This is in response to Russian aggression.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, Russia's not the aggressor here.
No.
Anyway, we're going to do a shout out now to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining the network. And again, anybody with any eyes looking over the last 18 years understands that it is not Russia that is the aggressor nation.
Nope.
It's not Iran that is the aggressor
No.
nation. It is the United States and off to one side, Israel,
Yeah.
that are doing all the aggressing. Now we're getting ready to aggress into Venezuela, a nation that has done absolutely nothing to us except inconvenience the oil industry.
Yeah. And, you know, I'm looking at this article and I'm thinking this administration is doing the absolute polar opposite of what is necessary, which means caging the false rage about what Russia has absolutely not done. Like, they didn't annex Crimea, we know it.
Yes.
I mean, President Obama is on record stating how that whole situation came down in the Ukraine.
Yes.
And confessed that the World Bank, the United States wanted to see regime change.
Yep.
To which the Crimeans responded with a referendum. Full out there, you know, people who watched it the whole 9 yards. It was completely...
Well, I don't
Yeah.
think we're going to hear any outrage about Russia's annexation of Crimea
Yeah.
now that Trump has said it was okay for Israel to annex the Golan Heights, although the United Nations has just issued their own statement saying, no, Trump doesn't get to do that.
Yeah,
Trump
I
doesn't
know.
get to change the status of the Golan Heights. It's still Israeli-occupied Syrian territory.
Okay. And we know there's a formula here. There is aggravation, demonization, destabilizing, followed by war.
Yes.
And I think, unfortunately, a number of my brother and sister Americans are going to wake up to that the day they know that the draft has been reintroduced.
Yeah, I'm afraid it's
Hello.
going to
Yeah.
take that.
Mhm.
That'll wake up America.
Mhm.
And without the draft, I think a lot of people are walking around saying, well, there's a lot of wars and there's a lot of suffering, but it doesn't really affect me.
Mhm.
And it's sort of a replay of what was called the good German syndrome,
Yeah.
where during World War II, Germans were aware there was a war. They were aware that bad things were going on with their government,
Yeah.
but their attitude was, I'm just going to mind my own business. I'm going to be a good little German, and nothing bad will happen to me. And of course, ultimately, it
Yeah.
did. They
Yeah.
lost their country
Mhm.
and suffered horribly for refusing to stand up and say, it's time for all this stuff to stop.
Right. And speaking of all this stuff, the DoD has ordered a new drone to simulate warfare with Russian and Chinese stealth jets. And every time I see a contract like this, it gets me depressed. It seems like that no matter who we may vote for in the national elections, the only winner is the war party.
I would agree here.
Yeah.
Now, interesting. Okay, this was the part I thought about. Anyway, they're talking about this 5G AT. It's a fighter-sized drone that's designed to train U.S. armed forces on how to counter Chinese or Russian fifth-generation fighter jets. The drone is going to have an advantage against the U.S. armed forces because the drone can go to much higher Gs in a
Yeah.
tight turn here. But this is the payoff here. The
Okay.
Pentagon is studying whether follow-on production versions of the drone can be used for air-to-air and ground-to-air I think they meant air-to-ground
Yeah.
weapons evaluation,
Yeah.
pilot training, and ground forces. The only issue, of course, is going to be latency, which
Yeah.
is an issue that current reconnaissance drone pilots have to deal with. And that means that no matter how close their little control room is, when they move the flight control, it takes a short interval of time for the drone to respond.
Mike, could you kind of quantify that for our listeners?
Well, when they
You-
first
you
started
think?
deploying the
Uh-huh.
drones across the Middle East, they were being operated literally out of bases in the American West, and the signals were being bounced to the satellite network. And so there was a very noticeable delay. First of all, because of the satellites reprocessing the data, plus the speed of light is a finite limit. And so they were getting like a quarter to a half second delay between what
Yeah.
they were doing and what they were seeing. But, you know, for something that's just flying along low and slow
Yeah.
and more or less straight, that wasn't really an issue. But when
Yeah.
you're talking about something that's going to be doing aerial combat maneuvering, dogfighting, that kind of latency is going to be fatal, and I don't know how they're going to get around that.
That's going to be an interesting engineering challenge.
Yes, it will be.
And what I thought when I was reading these articles, I have a note for President Trump. What this country perhaps does not need are new armaments leading to Warmageddon,
I like that.
but perhaps engaging in something that even approximates a sane foreign policy, which, Mike, at the moment, we absolutely, do not have.
Well, from our point of view, no. From the point of view of the money junkies and those in power, it's a very sane foreign policy. The United States is in decline. We've lost much of our manufacturing. Nobody wants our agricultural produce. People are turning away from the dollar. And the only way to reverse that situation in the minds of the administration is to have another war and basically bring everybody back under U.S. control. Unfortunately, I think the U.S. is going to lose this next one.
That's a very uncomfortable thought, but I think you're right. And a sane foreign policy to continue would be looking at crafting a working relationship with both Russia and China, so there is infinitely less need for these kinds of weapons. And President Trump and a large portion of your constituency have been feeling like I am, and I think people who marginally supported him over Clinton are suffering getter's remorse for what he's doing with the presidency and what his legacy will be.
Well, I think the people who are still Trump supporters are becoming fanatical about it.
Yeah.
And I think mostly they're just trapped by their unwillingness to admit maybe they made a mistake.
Yeah.
And the people who are disappointed by Donald Trump, I think they're very disappointed by Donald Trump. And again, back in 2016, it wasn't so much that I was supporting Trump as I was opposing Hillary Clinton.
I hear you, dear.
But I think Trump is going to be a one-term president. And I'm seeing all this stuff come on out from the GOP about just how great he's doing and how wonderful he's doing. And, look at that field of Democratic candidates. They haven't fielded anybody who can challenge Trump. But I think we can't ignore the possibility that Hillary may step in.
I know.
I mean, Biden's already talking vice president. He
Yeah.
still has not officially declared.
Yeah. That would be an interesting ticket, by the way. The lady with whom he wants to align, very bright, very powerful, very articulate.
Carries a grudge. She
Yeah.
still won't concede the
I know.
gubernatorial election.
But she could be sort of, I think, psychologically made over for that position. Who knows?
I don't know. Generally, your
Yeah.
personality is pretty much locked in by the time you're 30.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Los Angeles doing something logical. And go LA. And the Los Angeles County authorities have banned all use of glyphosate, the herbicide better known by its Monsanto Bayer trade name, Roundup.
That's your phone, I think. Yeah, it's in your office.
Okay, all right.
All righty. We're going to let Claire go and get a phone call.
I am so sorry.
All righty. I need the headset. I know. Okay.
All right.
Go get the... Who's in your office? I think you missed it. Sorry about that. Claire was expecting to get a call, and we're dealing with it. Okay. So let me come back and get some of my trailing stories here. Over in Indiana, they were having a school safety drill, or at least that's what they called it. And this was at an elementary school, and it's one of those safety drills that are meant to absolutely traumatize children with the sight of guns. This one got out of hands because the people playing the bad guys ordered teachers to kneel against the wall and then literally shot them execution style with airsoft pellet guns. Now, at close range, those pellets can injure, and one of the teachers did get injured. And apparently the people playing the bad guys were saying, this is what happens if you just cower. Now, how does this teach safety? Or how does this teach how to deal with the situation? It doesn't. It's about traumatizing people about guns. It's part of the gun grabber agenda. So Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is out there. She thinks this is, it's time to do this. We've got to do what New Zealand did, ban all semi-automatic weapons, high-capacity magazines, ban on bump stocks, which there actually is already one, which is about to go into effect. And that is part of the problem, because Alexandria has once again revealed to the world that she's clueless. She's not reading the laws. She's not reading the news. But she was out there saying pass universal background checks, and there's a specific bill, House Resolution H, disarm domestic abusers, mandate safe storage, ban the bump stock, semi-autos, and high-cap magazines. Ooh, it's so simple. Why can't we do it? But again, how do you enforce H.R. 8 without a national firearms registry? And by the way, domestic violence convictions or guilty pleas already result in the loss of your Second Amendment rights. Okay, and here you go. All right. So I hope that all worked out.
Yes.
All right, good. So we're going to turn your microphone back on up.
Thank you.
And as far as mandating safe storage, how do you enforce that? And as I said before, bump stocks have already been banned. She doesn't know what she's talking about. She's just out there grandstanding. All righty. So we were talking here about Los Angeles County has basically banned all use of glyphosate following a second jury finding that glyphosate was a substantial factor in another case of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
And he'd been using the herbicide on his Sonoma properties forever. And I think that Germany's Bayer is going to be feeling some getter's remorse.
They're definitely having buyer's remorse, or maybe Bayer's remorse.
Yes, something like that.
Something like that.
It was a boneheaded decision.
No, at the time it was a good decision. Even though Monsanto was internally aware that there was a problem, they had it under control. The news media wasn't reporting it. The citizens groups that were complaining about Roundup were being, controlled, negated,
marginalized.
Yeah. Then you get this one lawsuit, and it's I think there's something like 11,000 lawsuits lined up now.
Whoa!
And that could sink Monsanto. And depending upon how their corporate link up is set, could even take down Bayer as well.
Yep.
So if Bayer acquired Monsanto as a wholly owned subsidiary, then Bayer's got some isolation.
Right. And here's another very interesting note about war. Apparently, the French sugar giant is accused of complicity in terror in Syria. And this company is called Tereos, and it's been accused of supporting terrorism, get this, by supplying artificial sweeteners to Syria that are then used to make weapons.
And on that word, we have to take a break. We're going to come back to this story because it's interesting. We'll be right back.
Many people write us about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read you some from Amazon.com. This product is superb. I have been taking it for about a year now, and I can feel my cardiovascular system run like a Swiss watch. I definitely recommend this product for anyone that has high cholesterol, high blood pressure, and heart palpitations. A+. It's potent, but it works. I have been waking up for the past 3 years with numb hands, and a week into using Extendivite, my numb hands seem to have cleared up. My circulation was off, and now it's back on track. So I'm happy. I feel so energized, and I have my husband on it now. My mother-in-law has cholesterol problems, so I bought her a bottle as well. Thank you so much. Love the product. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge $20, $30, $40, $50, if possible, $100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And we're talking about this story where this French sugar company is basically under investigation. And apparently this company sent these 2 shipments of sorbitol to Syria in February and July of 2017. Now, sorbitol, when mixed with potassium nitrate, can be used to make rocket propellants. Now,
Wow.
there's a handy little formula to keep in mind.
Whoa, I knew that sorbitol as a sweetener was not good for you, but that it could be combined to make a weapon of mass destruction with other chemicals.
Well,
That's a yikes.
Now, I was into model rocketry as a kid, and this was just before Estes came along with the pre-made engines.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been through that whole thing about, figuring out how to mix the propellants and, make an engine that doesn't blow up. And I had more than a few of them go bang.
And what makes this situation in this case even worse, with findings by the Conflict Armament Research Organization, Tereos admitted that some 45 tons of the sugar alcohol had also vanished in a poof in Turkey and were later found in Daesh stockpiles in Syria. Have to wonder how that happened.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. And in December of 2017, Tereos insisted it had suspended its sorbitol supplies to so-called high-risk areas shortly after the Mosul discovery in 2016. But recent investigations have found that sales to Syria were not halted the following year.
Well, look, breakfast cereal or
Mhm.
rockets, we're making money,
Mhm. Yep.
Okay.
I'd kind of like to revisit, and you've been talking about
Yeah, we
this
were
a
talking
little.
about
Yeah,
this earlier in the show.
737S. Apparently, there were optional.
Actually, before we do that, we
All
have
right.
a caller on the line.
Okay.
Okay. And Dustin in New Jersey, aloha, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
And don't forget, they also found NBC nuclear biochemical warfare suits from Canada in Syria that the jihadis were using. And remember, they found chlorine making machines from Michigan. They found there. They found satellite phones from France. So Britain, France, United States, Israel, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey was all involved in this
And
operation.
they all lost.
And Canada, probably mostly. Yeah. I mean, but at what cost, Mike? The Syrian people lost. Look at the cities.
Oh yeah.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
you know, I
Bombed
mean,
into oblivion.
It's like a scorched earth policy, basically.
Mm-hmm.
They destroy. It's going to take like a long time to rebuild.
Some of the
and I
stuff
wouldn't
can't be
let one
rebuilt.
Western
I mean, some of the antiquities there.
Oh yeah.
That were just absolutely destroyed for religious reasons. It's a temple to a heathen god or whatever the rationale. I don't remember the name of it, but there was this one really magnificent temple.
Mm-hmm.
The remains of this temple, and it was just absolutely leveled.
Was that in Palmyra? They tried to destroy some of the Palmyra ruins, right?
Yes, that was it. That was where that happened.
Yes, definitely.
Hey, Mike, I wanted to talk about. You guys mentioned that drone. That's like a wingman drone, but hey, the Iranians hacked the MQ-10 drone.
Yes.
And all these other drones. So those drones can be turned, and used as weapons against the U.S. military. Basically, you can use them as kamikazes, or just crash them to the ground.
You can definitely do that. But there's another aspect of this, and I was thinking about it during the commercial break. If the United States is starting to get into the idea of truly autonomous drones, if the drone doesn't have an outside human operator, then that whole latency problem goes away. It's just, who's going to write that software to fly this drone around? I hope not Boeing.
Oh, please, no.
But I just don't think it has the ability to calculate different scenarios. Maybe in 50 years or something. But I just don't think the AI, the whole thing with the cloud, I don't think that's really here yet with the artificial intelligence flying. Wasn't that the sequel to War Games? Like that, there was a horrible sequel they made in like the year in 2000. It was like had something to do with a drone, like that got one by itself. It was like an AI drone or something. But yeah, I just don't think that's there yet. I think these are more maybe like being controlled by man, or maybe like maybe some of them are GPS driven, but still that can't do any dogfighting. Yeah, right. That's only for surveillance. The GPS ones.
Well, they may be further along than you think, and that's because I don't play computer games other than flight simulators. And while these days at my age I just fly, the passenger jets back from Maui and down to the Big Island. When I was first into the flight simulators, I would go on out there and I would dogfight against the computer, and the computer beat me every single time. So, and I know a little something about aerial combat maneuvering from a project I had to work on many, many years ago. So I know the basics. And this thing still would get behind me every single time. Dustin, we got to take a break for commercials. Thank you for the phone call, and we'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
I'm getting older and noticing that my body just doesn't work as well as it used to. So I like to keep fit as possible by hitting the gym a few times a week. Recently, I started having a nagging bicep pain, and it got so bad I couldn't even lift the weights. When I was complaining about it to a friend, he told me about Angioprim. He said chelation helps remove toxins, heavy metals, and cholesterol in veins and arteries that may cause blockages. You know, after just 1 week of taking Angioprim, the pain was gone, and now I'm back in the gym full strength. Scientific research proves the active ingredient in Angioprim has superior oral chelation action that helps promote cardiovascular health. So to learn more, go to angioprim.com. That's ANGIOPRIM.com, or talk to a trained consultant. Call Angioprim toll free at 877-882-7221. You'll feel better with more energy. Call 877-882-7221 or go to the website angioprim.com.
Do you know there is an ongoing war right here in America? Are you aware that U.S. citizens have been classified as enemies of the state since 1933? Have you recognized that our entire government is really a vast network of interlocking corporations engaged in commerce? Look up Title 28, Section 3002. Tune in to In Defense of Humanity on Saturday nights at 7 p.m. Central Time. Find out what's really going on and learn how to protect yourself and your family as flesh and blood men and women living in a corporate reality.
Don't regret growing old. It's a privilege denied to many. Heart disease is taking our youth from us. Young people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and beyond are dying needlessly. One of the hardest messages I've ever had to deliver is to convince people that something natural like Extendivite should be taken as a preventative measure. I'm sure you heard an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Extendivite is that ounce. Take Extendivite for 1 year and see what your doctor has to say and how much better you feel. Herbs take time to address the problem. It took years of life to have a problem. Give Extendivite 1 year to fix the problem. Don't wait until it's too late. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com or visit us on Amazon.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Welcome to What Really Happened Radio. Visit us online at whatreallyhappened.com. And now, set your eyes on the future and let's consider what really happened.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And before we get back to Claire here, I'm watching on the news, and I thought they would just mention the Mueller report was out, and that would be it. They're still going on with it. And they're making the point about no more indictments. Giuliani is out there saying this proves there's no collusion. Everybody's putting spin. But they're making a big deal about it now, and I think what the PR approach is going to be is they're basically on this Friday, you know, spring break time when a lot of people aren't paying attention, they're going to just put out the news. This was all a bust.
Yeah.
It's a big nothing burger on a gluten-free bun.
Okay.
And they're hoping by Monday it'll just fall off the news schedule, and that will be the end of it. In fact, I would almost not be surprised if there was some kind of event on Monday to give the corporate media a reason to completely drop this story. Okay, we have another caller on the line.
Good.
And that's Mark in Philadelphia. Aloha, Mark. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Can you hear me?
I hear you just fine.
Okay, great. I didn't know if it went through. Thank you for being there, Michael, and I appreciate you discerning these things. I'm going to bring up something that's historical, and it's because I know somebody who's from this country called Liberia in Africa.
Yeah.
And Liberia was formed as a colony that then became its own state, and I think that was Jefferson's idea. I'm not sure exactly about that, but anyway, There's a guy named Charles Taylor, and this is in the mid '80s, and later he became the president of Liberia, and he was involved with that Blood Diamond War thing going on over there in Sierra Leone by proxy.
Yes.
He was actually purchasing arms and then supporting that whole deal, where the child soldiers,
Yes.
they were basically wiping people out. Now, I'm not into the religion thing, but there was a guy here in America, he's still around, and did you know that he was buddy with Charles Taylor, and he was actually invested in that venture? Do you have any idea who that was?
No idea at all here. And, I've always been very cautious of that label Blood Diamond, because anybody who's in a conflict zone, they're going to sell whatever they can to buy their weapons with. So when we learn that ISIS is stealing oil from Syria and smuggling it across the border into Turkey, should we call that blood oil? Well, we maybe should, but we don't. If they're mining copper, do we call that, blood copper? It's only with regard to diamonds, and I've come to think more and more that the appellation of a blood diamond is actually from the existing diamond merchants to discourage people looking to other sources in order to keep their monopoly and in order to keep prices up, because diamonds really, if you think about it, they're kind of a hoax. People pay vast fortunes for these stones on this idea that they're somehow rare, but they're not, because there's enough diamonds out there for every married woman to have one on her finger. You go into any shopping mall, there are 3 or 4 stores full of diamonds. They are not all that rare, but we're sold that constantly. And the De Beers family and the various diamond merchants, they want to keep those prices up. And the blood diamonds, what are being called the blood diamonds, represent competition, and competition represents a fall in prices.
Well, and here's the point. Here's my point. Here's the point. Charles Taylor is now in prison. As of 2003, he was sentenced to 50 plus years by the International Criminal Court in The Hague.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Here's the big reveal. I thought you might be aware of this, and it's on Wikipedia, by the way. Pat Robertson. Pat Robertson invested with Charles Taylor. He was buddy with Charles Taylor.
You mean the evangelical preacher? That guy?
Yeah, that guy. The
Wow.
good guy, right?
Boy.
Yeah. Check it out.
Wow. That's a shocker.
Check it out, and listen to this. I happen to know a couple librarians, and when you mention Pat Robertson, the librarians, they know exactly who Pat Robertson is. They know who he was, what he was involved with the Charles Taylor thing and the whole thing, and they disliked Pat Robertson. And when I discovered this, I was like, wow, I didn't hear about this. And remember, wasn't Pat Robertson back in the 90s running for president?
Yeah, he did briefly run for president. Yeah.
How was this not revealed back then? I mean, I don't understand. I mean, he was involved with the whole effort that destroyed a lot of people and the child soldiers and all of that. I mean, it's just that's diabolical. That's anyway.
But
I absolutely
check
agree.
it out. I just thought I'd share that with you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much as well. And we just got an email here talking about the sorbitol going into the Syria, and saying, really, it just went to seriously diet conscious people, because if you're going to be a terrorist, you've got to stay in shape.
Right. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Wow.
All right. So what is your next story, my darling?
This comes to us from antiwar.com. Very good and very thorough, very soberly researched blog. And it said that the bloomed Boeing 737S lacked optional safety features, and the Ethiopian air captain skipped his training. I mean, this is really ridiculous.
It is. Now, we did actually cover this a little bit before, and again, these were these optional features. They're pricey.
Yeah.
And the airline management said, well, we don't really need to spend the money. And that's not the first time that this has led to a crash. If you remember that spectacular crash of a DC-10 at the Chicago airport that wiped out half of Playboy's management staff. They were on their way out to the West Coast. And the decision, there was a device known as a stick shaker, where if the plane was getting into a stall, it would shake the stick. And the airline bought one for the pilot side, but not the co-pilot side. So when the one engine tore off, the power to the pilot side went off. The co-pilot was trying to fly the plane, but because he didn't have a stick shaker, he didn't realize the plane was stalling. There's always a cascade of events. So you got to be very, very concerned about when airline management makes decisions about how do we save a few bucks, because if they're doing it on the safety systems, that's a problem. Now, Boeing has announced that one of the two systems that used to be optional will now be standard, and they're going to be sending out retrofit kits to all current owners of the 737 starting next week.
Wow. You know, there's a lot of blame to share, but understanding where both Boeing and the airline companies using these planes went wrong is important, and they may wind up getting sued out of existence. I can hear the clink of the class action lawsuits come crashing on in, and I have to wonder if they will be able to survive this incident.
Well, it's a major blow. There was that airline that's already canceled a $5 billion deal for 49 of the aircraft. I don't think they're going to be the last one. The timing couldn't be worse relative to the release of Boeing's 777X, which is their latest and greatest. And by the way, is actually a very pretty aircraft.
Okay.
There's a lot of blame going around. Certainly the pilot who skipped his training is to blame. The people who were supposed to be responsible for the pilot's training share part of the blame, because the pilots had not been briefed on how to bypass. And we had this story yesterday where apparently just the day before the crash, there'd been another flight crew on the deck that got into this same problem. But there was a deadheading pilot in the jump seat who knew what the problem was and was able to basically disconnect that autopilot system so they could gain control of the aircraft. So there's a pilot training issue. There's an over-reliance on automation, and there have been a lot of people saying that everybody's relying on the automation. They're cutting back on the pilot training, and they need to reverse this. They need to have more stick and rudder training so the pilots can fly that plane without the autopilots, without the flight director. The only time when the pilots actually fly modern planes is for the first 1,000 feet of climb after takeoff, and the last, I think it's 2,000 feet on final approach. And some of the newer aircraft are even doing auto landing. I think the 777, the original 777 did.
Okay.
Of course, even that had a software problem because they had that ramp strike issue up in San Francisco.
Yes, I remember.
That was caused by the Autolander. Better work on your software quality assurance there, Boeing.
And speaking of privacy and software, apparently travel is going to get a lot rougher here in the United States. We are being watched at every turn, and the U.S. has truly become the unhinged, surveilled state of America.
Yep.
Smart devices are spying on us, and our own computers and phones are tracking our movements. Now, airports have been particularly invasive since the creation of TSA, the Tourism Suppression Authority, in 2001. And invasive screenings and property and body searches have been a cause of irritation and inconvenience for those of us who are perfectly innocent, just trying to get from point A to point B.
And, in all these years, TSA's never actually caught a real terrorist. And even worse, when the Department of Homeland Security runs tests on airport gates, where they'll actually have their agents try and get on board the plane with a gun or an explosive, they get through 90% of the time. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I know. And now the Electronic Privacy Information Center, better known as EPIC, is suing U.S. Customs and Border Protection in an effort to stop the unwanted searches of the
That's
biometric
unwarranted searches.
unwarranted searches, yes, of Americans.
I have an idea.
What?
Okay, everybody flies naked on the airplane.
There you go.
Okay?
Yeah.
No hidden guns, no hidden bombs. Plus the fact that for a devout Muslim,
Mhm.
looking at a naked woman, not his wife, is a mortal sin.
Yes,
And they go
yes.
right to
The
wherever
dark
it is, the
place.
bad
Yes, the dark
Islamists
place.
go. There's the solution right there.
But here is the deal that I have for someone who looks like me. I have one of the most generic faces on this planet and look a lot like the Irish side of my family, dad's side. But what happens when the facial recognition program gets me wrong and labels me as an axe
See,
murderer?
that is the real
Yeah.
problem. They're not proving to be 100% accurate and reliable,
Mhm.
and you know, you get false positive.
Mhm.
And right now, the facial recognition systems are doing more false positives than actual accurate hits.
Yep.
And you're going to see people who are kept off their flights because they look kind of, sort of, maybe like somebody else.
Yeah, right.
I remember this public interest groups, they took a facial recognition system that was designed to look for criminals, and they showed it photos of every member of Congress, and they
I
got something
remember.
like 47 hits.
Yeah, yeah. I would be very concerned about that.
Yeah, it would be.
And let's now go to the wide world of education. Apparently in Indiana, some
Yeah,
elementary...
we talked about
Oh,
this one
we
too.
did. Okay,
Yeah, and
all
the-
right.
the pellet gun.
Yeah, that never should have happened.
No,
ever.
it's not about safety.
No.
It's not about protection.
Mhm.
It's about traumatizing the kids,
Mhm,
so that
yes.
when they see a gun, they go,
Yeah, oh my gosh, yeah.
it's a gun.
Another very interesting story about China. And apparently they had an horrifying blast at a chemical plant, killed 47, injured 640 people. And apparently what the Chinese did after this happened, the Chinese police, they arrested the executives.
Yes.
They didn't badmouth or bad treat the people who got hurt. They arrested the executives. Now, there's a lot of things about the way China does business I find morally abhorrent. This wasn't one of them. And you will never find that in the case of like a Boeing or a Lion Air. You know, just not going to happen.
Yeah, even in the case of like, well, let's look at this thing with Monsanto, where
Yeah.
it's come on out. Monsanto knew all along that glyphosate was toxic. I remember this video where there was this Monsanto spokeslug who was out there saying, glyphosate is as safe as water. You know, you could just drink it. And somebody handed him a glass. Here's a glass
Yeah.
of glyphosate. He said, no, I'm not stupid. And he put it down and he
I
walked
know.
off. They
I
knew.
know. Yeah.
They all knew.
Mhm.
And yet nobody goes to prison.
Yeah.
And you look at places like Deutsche Bank,
Mhm.
where
Oh,
their
yeah.
their employees just seem to have this epidemic of walking off the top of parking structures. No investigation. Nobody looks into it. Oh, it's just horribly tragic suicides. And
right.
it's a stun. We had that one that was earlier in the week about how this girl was handcuffed behind her back in a police car.
And shot herself.
And yeah, she was shot in the mouth, and the coroner ruled it was a suicide. I mean, come on,
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
You know, it's just wake up and smell the cordite.
Yes. Mike, for people like me, what is cordite? I don't
Oh,
know.
it's a gun propellant.
Thank you. Okay. All right. That made it clear. Apparently, the Sackler family, which owns the companies that make OxyContin, are being sued by 500 cities, counties, and tribes. And it's a group made up of a number of people and organizations. And they filed a massive lawsuit accusing members of the Sackler family, who own the maker of the opioid painkiller OxyContin, to help create the worst drug crisis in America.
And that's exactly what they
Oh,
did.
man.
And they were caught red-handed,
Yeah.
incentivizing doctors to
Yeah.
write these prescriptions.
Mhm.
And it was, you know, they had all this cheap opium coming in from Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And yeah, they got caught, and they should be sued, and
Yeah.
they should be sued out of existence. They should go to jail. Now, some of these people actually have. because the top two executives of another much smaller, less legally protected drug company who were caught basically bribing doctors to prescribe their products did get sent to jail. There was that one doctor who was falsely diagnosing healthy people as having cancer to sell chemo and radiation.
Yeah.
They put him in jail for
Good.
45 years.
Good. I think
Yes.
that was a good step. You
Yep.
know. And apparently about 8 people in this family made the choices that caused much of the opioid epidemic, the lawsuit says. And hundreds of thousands, I didn't realize that this was that big. Hundreds of thousands of Americans have died because of this.
Yes.
My gosh. You know, it's
Well,
like,
that does it. 15-day waiting period for OxyContin. We have to take another break
All right.
for commercials. Back with the last segment of our program after these few words.
Homeowners, are you in foreclosure, expecting to be served with a foreclosure lawsuit, or suspect your lender has coerced you into an illegal mortgage transaction? A huge number of mortgages made in the last 10 years have legal issues and are possibly defective. State laws and the U.S. Supreme Court have upheld that defective mortgage documents are grounds for foreclosure defense and for counterclaims in favor of the homeowner. If your mortgage has been sold or assigned since closing the loan, it may be defective and you may be paying the wrong party, and the lender may not have standing or the right to foreclose or collect payments under the law. If you would like to know if your mortgage is legal or not, or know if you are paying the right party, we can help. Our initial consultations are free of charge. We are not attorneys. We are legal researchers and work closely with experienced lawyers who know how to help you find the evidence to help you keep your home. Call toll-free 1-855-2-KEEP-IT. That's 1-855-2-KEEP-IT today.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more. Plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AirOutfitting.com.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
When all this twisted steel was swept away, did these remaining holes reveal what's really happened?
And Aloha America, welcome back to our show here. And a little bit earlier in the program, we were talking about spring break and how out of control it is over there in Florida. And I mentioned this video where there was literally this mob of bikini-clad girls just fighting each other, kicking each other. I mean, really wild stuff. And I said, what's going on here? And Claire's next story may be a clue.
Okay. Newly prescribed ADHD medications may cause psychosis. There's been a study that has found that. Certain medications used to treat ADHD in teens and young adults are more likely to have symptoms such as paranoia, hallucinations, delusions, and hearing voices. Whoa, that's
boy, that is.
Oh, that's not good at all.
Oh my goodness, Adderall. That's
yeah,
a common one.
Yeah.
I mean,
but researchers were finding that patients who had been newly prescribed amphetamines, such as Adderall and Vyvanse, were more likely to develop psychosis than those who received a prescription for the methylphenidates, such as Ritalin and Concerta. And this study was published Wednesday by the New England Journal of Medicine. And while psychosis with either class medication is still relatively rare by their numbers, occurring at a rate of 1 in 660 patients, experts caution that patients should know about the increased risks.
well, of course, long-term exposure to amphetamine, it's already known. It can do strange things to your head here.
Yeah.
And all of this is being done when the guy who came up with the phrase ADHD admitted it was a made-up disease to sell these very medications. And now we have yet another story about how these medications are causing this kind of harm. Now, I don't know about you, but 1 out of every 600 patients being driven psychotic, well, that's certainly enough to explain all the mass shootings and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Possibly, yes.
Okay. So, are we really drugging our entire planet?
Researcher Dr. Lauren Moran, who is an assistant prof at Harvard, you have to think about it from the public health scale, she said. If it's a fraction of millions of people, that means that many out there could have additional cases of psychosis across the United States, and that is a serious problem.
That is a serious problem. And you have always, of course, the case of people who are driven psychotic who will never get back to the doctors because they've been in a car wreck or they get into an altercation with police and are shot dead or something. But I mean, this is a red warning flag.
Oh, yeah.
That we have allowed this pharmaceutical, messing with our minds go just a little too far. Okay, there's the music. Time for Claire and I to get out of here and get something useful done with the weekend. Have a good weekend. Stay tuned for John Stadmiller. I'm sure he has lots of interesting things to share with you as well. Please donate to Republic Broadcasting. Please, please, please donate to whatreallyhappened.com.
And thank you on both those
And thank you on both of those here as well. Have a good weekend. Aloha, America.